It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for rejoining the conversation. We're going to get uncharacteristically serious right now because we've been through a couple of weeks here in South Africa that we never want to face again, but we probably will. So many lives were interrupted by the violent taxi strike that erupted in Cape Town owing to disagreements between the City of Cape Town and the South African National Taxi Council. I know I'm oversimplifying grossly, but here it is. The City of Cape Town then enforcing a new traffic bylaw, and that's aimed at reducing traffic offences and dangerous driving. That was at the heart of it. Well, the strike is over, thankfully. Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, Alderman J.P. Smith, who is often here to do a little bit of politicking, but be more human, I think, today, because this felt like a very human moment. Thank you so much for joining us. And I don't even know if we say well done for getting to this point, because I know a lot of people had to push really hard to get to this point. Thankfully, at the end of this terrible journey, safety, or at least sanity, did seem to prevail. Put it in perspective for us. Have you been able to wrap your head around how these last 2 weeks have played out? As a South African, break it down for us, because you've had a front row seat.
So I don't think anybody escaped the consequences of what happened.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that you can calculate. The 30-plus city vehicles that were damaged, 12 vehicles destroyed, 10 Golden Arrow buses burned, 2 My City buses, over 50 Golden Arrow buses damaged, over 30 private vehicles, numerous city facilities, clinics, depots, electricity depots, a SAP station, 1 Metro EMS ambulance. So there's quantifiable things that were destroyed, and those things have value. The Golden Arrow buses alone is 26 million rand. And some of that they don't recover from the insurance. But there are incalculable things. The lives lost and people injured. There are 5 people who lost their lives during this. 1 woman during a stampede, during a looting incident. And Officer Zanikaya Kwenana, I'm going to his memorial tonight. And I mean, his family is devastated. His children will never see him again. There's no undo on that. So that damage is incalculable and felt by many, myself included. And there is reputational and confidence loss in South Africa. It is a country which for 10 days seemed to lose its moral compass and waver off all over the place, with some of our public figures who are responsible for upholding the law, speaking in favor of those who engaged in the violence, who carried water for an industry that committed itself to violence. And I think that there's a loss of confidence. There's a damage to the tourism industry in terms of tourists that were injured, and a British tourist who lost their lives, his life, and his family who were injured. So those losses, I think we will only see reflected into the future.
It's a human cost. It felt like a failure on a human level when watching the thousands walking out of town along that highway on our way home. We were eerily in town on that day as this kind of unfolded. Yeah, that is a mark that all of us will have to bear.
Yeah, even being there at night, on the night, seeing some people still stranded with no options and just banding together to kind of figure out what to do. It was very concerning. For me, what's even more concerning is the principle that's actually been at play here. It's, in a sense, showing that it seemed like violence was being used to leverage some sort of statement, but yet it wasn't necessarily entertained the way it possibly was expected. The results seemed to not actually change. At the end of the day, it just caused more violence and more issues. I can't really call this a win for anybody, but what can we actually take from this? Are there any positives to take from this at all?
So, South Africa has a serious problem with law and order. Yeah. And there is a lack of commitment by government to ensuring that President Ramaphosa, when he became president, said a key hallmark of his presidency would be a commitment to law and order and bringing us back to a path, a sustainable path. You cannot have a sustainable, prosperous South Africa without order and structure and the rule of law. That has been frequently tried by an industry that readily resorts to violence and economic sabotage, burning competitors' vehicles. First, the extensive sabotage of the rail network and the paralyzing thereof, which has forced many people to use the minibus taxis because the available and more affordable alternative of the trains is not available,
Out of the
has been
equation.
sabotaged, and the systematic use of violence during these strikes as a fig leaf to damage competitive vehicles. So over 62 Golden Arrow buses, multiple My City vehicles and others, e-hailing vehicles that were damaged. So you do get to a point when you have to commit to taking a stand for law and order, for treating all people equally before the law. We have democratic processes in South Africa. If you want to change the law, there are mechanisms for you to do so. So it's important to understand that we're not even dealing with a Cape Town bylaw here. It's not a city bylaw that was used to impound these vehicles. All the vehicles are impounded in terms of the National Land Transport Act, which has been around for many, many years. It is used across South Africa. If you simple Google search will show you a provincial minister in KZN celebrating the impoundment of 72 taxis in KZN 2 years ago. The provincial MEC Vadi in Gauteng, who has on numerous occasions announced the impoundment of vehicles. So it is something that happens all the time. We've been doing it in Cape Town for more than a decade, but we have in the last 2 years moved more towards driving behavior. We have placed more focus on driving behavior, and we impound between 900 and 1,200 taxis a month, none of which would be impounded if the driver's held by the law. And so it's not that we impound willfully or capriciously. It is for a serious driving offence. We still issue fines for the rest, but if you drive on a sidewalk or into oncoming traffic, or you ignore stop streets and traffic lights, you drive on the shoulder of the road, the stuff that causes people to die, that contributes to 12,500 people losing their lives on South African roads every year, then maybe issuing a fine is not good enough. You have a responsibility for all those people in your vehicle who have limited choices about what other transport options they can take. And my primary commitment is to those communities because I am measured by my mayor in the city as to how many lives we save on the road.
Oh, wow, okay. So, reducing that risk.
As I understand it, the Transport Minister Chikunga is now speaking about those impounded vehicles being returned. Where does that leave us within this dynamic? We'll get onto that and a whole lot more, delving deeper into the taxi strike, but counting the cost. Yes, we know there is a financial cost, but most importantly, it is the human cost. So if you have a perspective, let us know. 0634088863. We'd love to hear how you feel about how things have turned out over the last 2 weeks.